There's a quick word which is needed to be talked about before we start covering anything. I was trying to do this thing through reading strict text, and it sounded very unnatural and artificial. So after doing it for once and then changing the approach and doing it for the second time, now I'm here just talking to you, and that's the way I'm going to be explaining everything you need to know to be able to fully pronounce and read Polish words. So yeah, good day everyone. This is my Polish pronunciation guide. Okay, so in order to have you understand what's going on the screen, and in theory, you need to get to know what the International Phonetic Alphabet is, which is not hard, don't be worried. There is a place of articulation, which is the place in which during speech there is obstructed. For example, in p, two lips are coming together. Then there is a manner of articulation, which is the way the air flows or is released through mouth and nose as it's pronounced. So, for example, when you say p, there is a one drastic rapid release. And when you say n, part of the air goes through nose. And then there is voicing, which is the simplest thing that you can imagine, because during producing the sound, your vocal cords either vibrate or they don't. And to see that, put a hand in the throat, say s, feel no vibrations, and then say z, and feel the vibrations. There's another thing. You need to look at that image for a second, for a few seconds, just look around. It's going to be helpful. And whenever you get lost in terminology, go back to that kind of image and check it, because if you don't know what's being talked about, you don't know anything. So when it comes to some familiar sounds and symbols, I don't think they need any further explanation, because everything, if whatever you need to know, is written down below, and I don't think actually you will need it. But if you are curious, you can read it and you'll know. However, there is one thing which must be covered, which is that in English, that T's and D's and N's and so on are actually fully alveolar, which means that the blade of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge. However, in Polish and, for example, Spanish and Italian, the T's and D's and N's are dentalveolar, which means that the tip of the tongue touches the upper teeth as the blade touches the alveolar ridge. And that is the adjustment that you want to make. For obvious reasons, unfamiliar sounds and symbols will be harder to understand and to know how to say them. However, I still wouldn't be worried if I were you. We will start with alveolar flap, which means that the tip of the tongue just once touches the alveolar ridge, and that makes the sound ra, ra. It's not like it's the Polish R, and it's not trilled as you might think. It's not a ra, a ra. It just flapped ra, ra. And it's in the words like brat and ryba. There are two unfamiliar nasal symbols. The palatal nasal should be familiar to anyone who has ever heard Spanish. It's basically made by moving the center of your tongue close to the hard palate and lowering the velums of the part of the ear goes through nose. So it's nya, anya, and it's in the words like nye and stang. Velar nasal is familiar probably to most of you. It's an N made with the back of your tongue in the same place as you make a ka sound. So it's nga, nga, and it's in words in English. Every word which has ing has a nga, as in doing, playing, swimming. And in Polish, it's in the words like bank and bongo. Retroflex fricatives are almost the same as English postal fricatives. Sha, a sha, and ja, a jaz, and shine, and measure. However, the tongue is slightly more curled back when you say Polish retroflex consonants, and they are sha, a sha, and ja, a ja. And they are in the words like szary and rzadki. Alveolar palatal fricatives are a more complicated case, slightly, because I kind of do not know how to tell you what's the position of the tongue, which is called alveolar palatal, so I will try to explain it in a different way. So put your tongue into the position as you would want to say sa, as sa, then lift up the center of your tongue towards the hard palate, and that movement should take the tip and the blade of the tongue off the alveolar ridge. And then if you hiss the air as you want to make sa, you would get the sha, a sha, and ja, a ja. And when you do that process, it should sound basically like this. and z. And these fricatives are in words like śruba, siatka, źle, and ziemia. There is also voiceless velar fricative. So it's velar, which means that the tongue is the same position as for ka, and it's fricative, so you want to hiss the air as for sa. So it is cha, a cha, as in chory and hrabia. Affricates is what's left. And you can see, if you looked at them, they are made of two symbols, one that is a plosive and the other one that is a fricative. There are two affricates in English. It's cha as in chur and ja as in rejoice. And affricates are being made by stopping the air as for a plosive, but releasing it as a fricative. That's the theory behind it. So there are three types of affricates in Polish. The easiest ones will be the retroflex one because they're literally the same as cha and ja, but these are post or velar, and Polish ones are retroflex. So it's the same case as with English sha compared to Polish sha. The tongue's just slightly more curled back. So they are cha and ja, as in czas, czar, dżem, and dżuma. The dental velar affricates are very easy. You stop the as for t, you release it as a s. And it's the same with the and z, like for the voiced version of it. So it's za and za, as in cera, kot, dzban, and rdza. And finally, there are alveolo-palatal affricates, made by stopping the and then releasing it as a sha or ja. So they are cha and ja, as in ćma, chet, dźwięk, dzień. Alright, vowels. I'm actually very happy that I'm able to talk to you about vowels. I'll read that text. Vowels in general have three main features, which are backness, height, and roundness. And you can see on the chart that E is a high front unrounded vowel, and O is low mid back rounded vowel. Basically what you want to do in order to teach yourself these vowels is to find a chart of your language vowels, which might be found at any Wikipedia language phonology pages. Like for most common languages, there are the charts. So in order to teach yourself these vowels, you want to try to find the closest vowels in your language to the one that you want to teach yourself to say in Polish, and then modify it slightly until you hear the sound that you want to hear. And in Polish, we have these vowels: I, U, I, E, O, and A. As in kiwi, królu, ryby, elekt, koło, and kawa. Additionally, in Polish, there are two nasal diphthongs, which are represented by letters A with a tail on and E with a tail ão. And these pronunciations are used only before fricatives that are not alveolo-palatal, and word final A with a tail is pronounced on, as in counts and zmoro. Before bilabial consonants, they are m and as in kłębek and ząb. Before dental velar consonants, which are not fricatives, they are n and on, as in kręcę and żądza. Before retroflex consonants, they are on and n, as in węże and pączek. The case when they occur before alveolo-palatal consonants is slightly more complicated. These vowels might be pronounced ę and on, as in pięść and kącik. However, they also might be pronounced eń and on, as in pięść and kącik. And pięść or pięść might also be pronounced pięść for reasons of which we will be talking about later. Before velar consonants, they are eng and on, as in pęk and mąka. Before palatalized la, a la, and wa, they are e and o, as in cleli and pio. And word final ę is pronounced e, as in biorę and się. And I forgot to mention before, as far as I'm aware, we will be using many strange symbols, so don't be worried, I will be explaining them sooner or later. And now move on to some more interesting things. We are done with that boring theory which explains how sounds work. and we're going to go into some more practical stuff, starting with voicing assimilation of obstruents. And obstruents are plosives, fricatives, and affricates. So pa, ba, sa, za, cha, ja, and so on and so on. There are two types of assimilations. The first one is progressive, and it occurs in Polish when va or ja is preceded by a voiceless consonant, and then va or ja changes to a voiceless version, so it's fa or sha, as in words łatwe and krzesło. So v tends to f, łatwe, ż changes to sz, krzesło. Regressive assimilation works everywhere else. Whenever you have a cluster of obstruents, which we'll call xz, it is always x which takes these voicing. So when podkładka, d changes to k because k is voiceless. And other words are słuchawki, łóżko, jakby, duch Boży. And as you see, it might happen, and it will happen cross-word. Word final devoicing of voiced obstruents is pretty self-explanatory. So whenever there is a voiced obstruent at the end of the word, it's gonna get devoiced, as in drup, rut, druk, paf, paś, ryc, mieć, brycz, raz, and ash. However, if the next word starts with a voiced obstruent, the previous word final obstruent is gonna keep its voicing. So there is róg, but, róg brata. There is another thing. If there is a word final voiced obstruent as a letter, and the next word starts with a vowel or with a sonorant, so basically any other consonant that is not an obstruent, then there is a facultative pronunciation. And if you choose to keep the devoiced version, then you will keep it when the next word starts with a vowel and when it starts with other sonorant. And if you choose to pick the voiced version, then you will always stick to the voiced version. So these words might be pronounced dąb Anny or dąb Anny, gród Łucjana or gród Łucjana, Bóg Jakuba or Bóg Jakuba. There are also assimilations concerning place of articulation. In Polish, they occur when dental vowel consonants are followed by orbicular or postorbicular or retroflex consonants, and then they change to one of these. For example, the first word might be pronounced drzwi, but might be pronounced drzwi, with d curled back to the retroflex position, and the same happens with przed sztormem. It might be przed sztormem or przed sztormem. In the rapid speech, you always use the retroflex version of d and t and others, but in careful speech, you will always use the normal dental vowel version of these consonants. Then, any dental vowel consonants might change to alveolo-palatal when preceded by one, as in rozdzielić or rozdzielić. That will happen much, much more often, generally. Probably if you ever hear anybody saying these words, it will be rozdzielić, not rozdzielić, until they were very careful, as I said before. The second phrase is either przez dzień or przez dzień. And then if na is preceded by a vowel consonant, it changes to nga, as in bang and bongo. However, if na is followed by ka or ga, it is then post-palatal or prevelar, these two mean the same. Nasal nga, anga, as in angina and skakanki. What post-palatal or prevelar means is the place between palatal and velar. If you say nya and then say nga, you can see that there is a space between them. So that is the place in which you say this consonant. And finally, na preceded by ovulo-palatal affricates changes to nya, as in w momencie. There are also assimilations concerning manner of articulation. For example, when a palatal nasal nya is followed by a fricative, then it changes to nasalized ja, which is ja, as in pański and chiński. A plosive might change to an affricate when it stands before another affricate, and in some unspecifiable cases, when they stand before fricatives. For example, this word may be pronounced odzew or odzew, podsypywać or podsypywać, matce or matce. There's also a very strange phenomenon happening in Polish, and it occurs when a palatal nasal nya is followed by an affricate, and then it is actually pronounced as a nasalized ya, ya, with a nasal of a place of articulation of the following affricate. So these words and a phrase are pronounced słońce, nieskończoność, dłoń czarna, or dłoń czarna. Prepare for confusion, as we are facing a situation when wa appears out of nowhere, and then it facultatively might change to ya. So, if there is a sequence, vowel plus nasal plus fricative, and places of articulation of a nasal and a fricative are the same or close to each other, then the sequence changes to vowel plus wa plus fricative. And if that fricative is alveolo-palatal, then wa may optionally change to ya. So these words are pronounced kwadrans, nimfa, po kwadransie, or po kwadransie. Palatalization as a phonetic process. When there is a consonant that is not palatal or alveolo-palatal and is followed by I, ya, palatal or alveolo-palatal consonant, it gets palatalized, which means that the center of the tongue moves more or less towards the hard palate as you pronounce the consonant. As in lis, miara, piła, biorę, oka z jaszczurki, or oka z jaszczurki. There is also palatalization as a sound change. When ka or ga is preceded by e or e plus vowel sequence, then it changes its place of articulation from vila to palatal, kya and gya, as in kierunek, gierka, kilogram, ogień, and pakiet. Next feature, Geminates. Geminates are groups of two exact same consonants pronounced as one but prolonged. And what prolonged means in that situation is that you keep your tongue at the position of a place of articulation for a second longer, as in lekki, sak, mirra, and takim mówcą. Vowels, allophones. Every vowel is nasalized when it stands before a nasal or nasalized consonant, as in siema and wyimaginowane. Every vowel is raised if it is preceded or surrounded by palatal or alveolo-palatal consonants until the second consonant is nasal, as in Jasiek and Ciecierzyca. What raised means is that if we looked at the chart, which I showed you before, that e or any other raised consonant would be drawn higher. And every vowel is raised and nasalized at the same time if it is surrounded to the left by a palatal or alveolo-palatal consonant and to the right by nia or ja, as in łysienie and chrześcijański. Rare occurrence of glottal stop. What's a glottal stop? A glottal stop is theoretically a closure in the glottis, like you close it to some degree and that makes the sound. Practically, it's the sound between o, or in some English accents you can say glottal stop when the T is between two vowels, as in water or glottis. And in Polish, when there are two vowels next to each other, there's a glide ja or wa inserted, or a glottal stop. With a note that inserting a glottal stop is a fairly new phenomenon. There are words in which inserting a glottal stop sounds strange. I have found one, but I forgot it, and I didn't note it anywhere, so I can't give you an example. But I wouldn't be worried. I would say that inserting a glide is slightly more old-fashioned way of speaking, but it certainly does not sound strange or unusual. So these words might be pronounced poeta or poeta, Ukraina or Ukraina. Either is fine. Glottal stop will always be inserted before a word initial vowel until the speaker speaks extraordinarily careful, as in oko and ale. And the final situation in which a glottal stop might occur is after a word which finishes with a vowel and is highly influenced with feelings. For example, a child might be very upset and say nye, nye, or even nye. So that's it. A quick word about stress. Words have syllables, and some syllables carry stress and some do not. In Polish, primary stress almost always falls on the next to last syllable, as in kawa. There is also secondary stress, which exists in words that have more than 3 syllables, and it almost always falls on the first one, as in kolorowy. Ko is secondary stressed, Ro is primarily stressed. Kolorowy. The last thing which I'm going to be talking about is a transcription which covers most of what we have been talking about. It is a strange text, so my intonation might seem strange. If you want to translate it, feel free to do that. Dłoń czarna kierowała się w stronę wąsa, a oczy błędnie okrążały dwa różne kąty ścian jednocześnie, a ich krańce zdawały się nieprzerwanie oddalać. Krtań wpatrywała się w ten przedziwny cykl, w miejscu, gdzie unosił się swąd hukania. Jęk, nie znając miejsca swojego położenia, a starożytny chiński wystrój pomieszczenia w najmniejszym stopniu nie dodawał mu otuchy. Szansy, by uciec, nie dostrzegł. Innej poddał się więc szansie, mogącej go uratować. This is the end. The end! How magnificent is that? You have passed! It is all I have prepared. And as it is all I have prepared, now it is a time to say goodbye. To say goodbye. That's a story that I have to say goodbye. For now, at least. There's plenty of links in the description section, by the way, so feel free to go down there. And if I find any mistakes, I'll let you know in a pinned comment. If you find any mistakes, please let me know, so I can include them in that comment. And as I said a second ago, it is a time to say goodbye. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned many things. So, yeah. Goodbye.